Wow, that was quite an intro. I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm just going to move on. Um, that's clickbait, all right? I clickbaited you with the title React Hooks just so you can actually attend the talk, because if it was the other title, you would have been like, oh, it's a React conference. Come on, don't sweat it. We don't want to listen to that. No, actually, we changed the talk last minute, but we couldn't change it on the screen. But because we said we're going to talk about hooks, I'm going to talk about hooks for like 5 minutes. So let's get React out of the way first. Hooks are great, but not that great. So I think lately we're just talking about positive things about hooks. Hooks are amazing. Hooks cured my depression. Hooks this, hooks that. But let's talk about what's great and not that great about hooks. So hooks are a breath of fresh air. They're easily shareable, and they're way, way, way better than using classes. So stop that discussion. Oh, I'm still using a class because I need component did. No, you don't need a class. Hooks are way better. It's going to improve the productivity of your team, period. So that's not even a discussion. But hooks are not ideal. They are not that straightforward. Even for experienced developers, they're struggling with hooks. Like, I had someone in my last workshop who said, I thought I was an experienced React developer, and then hooks came along, and he's like, now I don't know shit. So they're not that straightforward, and they're not that easy to grasp for beginners. So when you explain React to beginners, and when you start talking about functions, which is just something that returns something, and then you introduce like a stateful hook or an effect or something, they're like, what the hell is going on? I wish this was simpler. So they're not that easy to grasp. And the most important part, they're not an ideal solution for global state management. All right, let's not pretend that they're replacing all the other solutions that we had. So people are saying you can just combine use reducer, use state, and use context just to solve global state management, right? Wrong. I hate this. I hate that we like this so much. We're like, React is not a framework, and it's nice because it's so lean and it's so small. And then you're struggling to integrate a form library, you're struggling to integrate a router, you're trying to make your form library and your router to somehow talk together, and all of these other frameworks like have them out of the box. So I don't like that we're so proud of this, that React is not a framework, and then we're wasting so much time. Everyone is in a different camp, and everyone is divided about how do we actually do things in React. And one of those things is global state management that apparently the React team loves to ignore. They're like, it's solved. In a way-ish, maybe? I don't know. It's not solved. Like, people are trying to solve these like global state management things with so many different libraries. So let's see, what is the ideal state management dream? It includes 4 steps. One of them is you want to have a global store. You want to have a global store. No matter if you're using GraphQL or whatever, you need some kind of a global store in your app. You need something that all of your components can access. Second, you need to provide a store, provide it to all of your components. And then the most important part is just pulling information out of that store. So that's fine if you pull information, but if this component is still dumb and doesn't know that it needs to render only when I'm pulling in, only when the user is changing, so here I'm reading the user from the store, then the solution is not that smart. And this is what you're getting with hooks and context. You're going to provide a global store object, but no matter what changes in the object, React is not that smart to only render that component based on the variables. So the fourth thing is re-rendering the components not when the entire store changes, but only when the variables that component needs change. And React doesn't have a solution for that out of the box. And the bonus is, if it's small in size, performant out of the box, works great with GraphQL and TypeScript. So there's not an ideal solution, unfortunately. I'm going to give you a couple of solutions, and then we're going to move on to the other part of the talk. So hooks, small in size. I checked this because they're part of React, so actually you're not including anything extra. They don't have this magic re-rendering. So Jamon was talking about mobx state tree and observables and how they're magically re-render your components. Hooks don't have that. You have to babysit your components. You have to use memo and all of these other things. Otherwise, it's not going to work. And when you're memoizing everything, like every component, then it's hard to move things around. It's hard to like modularize things in different stores and so on. So it's a pain in the ass. It works great with TypeScript. It's not performant out of the box because, as I said, you would have to use memo in a lot of places. And it doesn't work great with GraphQL. Actually, none of the solutions I'm going to talk about work great with GraphQL, because usually GraphQL is in one store and then all of your global store is in another store. Then we have Redux. It's small in size. It's very small. It doesn't have magic rendering. You would have to wrap your components with Connect and actually tell it what do you need. It's not performant out of the box because you need to use something like reselect and all the other stuff to optimize your components. Works great with TypeScript. Doesn't work great with GraphQL. It's a pain in the ass. Can our community deal with this, that Redux is a big pain in the ass? And it's not worth the trouble. Like, we're still stuck on that mindset from 2016. Oh, it's pure and it's actions. It's not worth it. So what is worth it and what you might want to look into is one of my favorite solutions, MobX State Tree. It's not small in size. You need MobX State Tree, you need MobX, you need MobX React. They're going to be around 100 to, like, I don't know, it's big. It's big, it's going to be a big part of your bundle, but it's magic in re-rendering. You can modularize, separate all of your stores and so on. It's a magical state tree, okay? It says it in the name. It's a tree for organizing your state. How much, like, how simpler can it get when you see that, and when you get Redux, which the tagline should be a very complicated thing that you're not going to understand for 6 months, and we were like, I'm going to pick Redux. Like, this is a magical state tree to organize your state, to pull information from your state, and then it's going to magically re-render your components. But it doesn't work that great with TypeScript, and there is a GraphQL solution in the work for it, but it's still not ideal. And the last one that I think not a lot of people know about, and I wanted to mention here, is Overmind. So it's small in size, very small. It also has this magic re-rendering that MobX has. It's performant out of the box. It's TypeScript first, so you can write your state in TypeScript. It's really cool. It doesn't work great with GraphQL because, as I said, none of these libraries work great with GraphQL. So I'm telling you all of these solutions just so you can look into them, and just please leave the mindset, oh, but it's mutable. I want pure and functional and whatever. Just leave that for 2016 if you want to make your life easier. If you're paid by the hour, you can stick to Redux, whatever. That being said, let's start with the other part of the talk. So hi, I'm Kitze. I'm the Kitze on Twitter. I love making products. I said I love open source. I don't say that anymore. I like open sourcing things and then forgetting about them. I like speaking and I like teaching. We're doing a workshop actually tomorrow. I'm working on this lately for the last couple of months. I'm working on CZ. It's a browser made for designers and developers. For now, it's focused on responsive design. So the major aspect of it is responsive design. But the end goal is for you to use this instead of using Google Chrome or Firefox or whatever you're using when you're doing any sorts of development. So yeah, that's it about me. I'm going to keep the intro short. Now this was the talk of my title that I wanted to talk about. It was navigating the hype-driven front-end development world without going insane. The moment I tweeted about this, Twitter jumped on me and they're like, you cannot say insane in 2019. I'm like, okay, I'm going to change it to crazy without going crazy. No, you cannot say that. I'm like, all right, we're going to change a couple of other things in the world if we cannot say that. So this is the song Aerosmith Unstable. This is Seal Unhinged, and Beyonce Unbalanced in Love. So I'm going to change my talk title. They're going to change their songs. And I said, this is the talk, navigating the hype-driven front-end development world without going nuts. But there's going to be someone up there who's going to be like, no, my cousin is allergic. You cannot say that. So I'm like, all right, I give up. This talk is called Navigating the Hype-Driven Front-End Development World. So this is the vision of yourself after the conference, right? You're like, oh, I can't wait for this to be over. We're going to grab beers. It's Amsterdam. It's so cool. All of that stuff. But unfortunately, this is going to be you after the conference. Not because it's hot here, not because you're going to be sweating because of the weather. Every person who gets on stage just fills your mind with a lot of things, right? So by now, it's like 11 a.m. and you're already, oh, fuck, we need to refactor our entire app. Somebody mentioned MobX State Tree, somebody mentioned this and that. We need to refactor fucking everything. So I'm here to change your mind so you can be like more peaceful for the rest of the conference. So this is me. I'm not sweating because instead of watching the talks, I was tweaking my slides. Why do we have this? Why do we have this whenever we see someone talk about something awesome that they're doing, we have this fear of missing out, that others have it better. So let's see the Wikipedia definition. For fear of missing out, it's a pervasive apprehension that others are having fun and you're absent from it. That's the short version. So everyone has their own version of FOMO, and my version is FOMO to something like this. So my version of FOMO is fear of mofos on Twitter tweeting dev stuff that you cannot find elsewhere. Anytime some developer says, I don't have a Twitter, I'm like, how? Where do you get your information? Who tells you how to live your developer life if you don't have Twitter? So right now on stage, I have fear that someone might be tweeting about something awesome going on. Why do we have this FOMO? A lot of things. Without ourselves, without our code, we focus on the wrong things, we obsess with the wrong metrics, we have a lot of free time. Like if you have a PlayStation in your company, you have a lot of free time, okay? And we love to procrastinate. We're gonna touch on each of these topics, starting with we're focusing on the wrong things, we're obsessed with the wrong metrics. When I was learning GraphQL, I met with a friend who was more experienced with GraphQL, and we were talking about everything that he was doing in his company, and then he went on a 30-minute rant about the tech stack that they're using. He was like, we're using like all of these layered services and everything is like serverless with micro serverless services something, and the response is like 0.000 milliseconds, and he's talking about GraphQL. I lost him after the first sentence. I'm like, yeah, tell me more. And then I interrupted. I'm like, wait. What are you building? Are you building the next Facebook? Are you building the next Pinterest? Why are you optimizing this so much? And then he said, we're building a hospital website. Like they were building a landing page for a hospital. And I'm like, there's not going to be a situation where the nurse is going to go, doctor, we're losing the patient because our landing page is not fast enough. So why were you sweating the landing page that much? I don't know. And we have like, everyone has this kind of stories where people are sweating their tech stack so much for no reason. Without ourselves and without our code. I think everyone has this. So raise your hand if you made something, it works and you think it's awesome, but you're not sure if it's right. So everyone has this, just the lazy people won't raise their hands. But trust me, everyone in this room thinks that someone else is smarter than them and someone else should judge their project if it's right or wrong. But like, what is right and who is right in the community? We always think there are a couple of people who know everything and thinks it's right. But it turns out that in some scenarios, there might be wrong. So I think everyone should judge for themselves. We always have these people who are like, oh my God, you haven't tried Redux Helicopter. It's so amazing and it solves everything in your company. And you're like, oh, no, I don't know. Well, this might be a bit ironic because if you know me from Twitter, you're like, aren't you that person? Aren't you that asshole that's tweeting this kind of things? Because sometimes I like to have fun and I'm tweeting stuff like this. Like I mentioned that if you combine CoffeeScript with Babel 7 and with Webpack 4, which wasn't out, it's just the most amazing combination. And you see those 4 replies are from people who are like, really? Really? CoffeeScript is back? Should we? It's CoffeeScript. Like it was dead a couple of years ago, but still, anytime you have a couple of followers, you tweet something like this, people are like, we're missing out. CoffeeScript is back. We need to refactor everything in CoffeeScript. So it's pretty crazy. Before you listen to someone else's advice, especially like if you want to listen to my advice, you should know the person's story. So here's my story before you know, should we listen to this person on stage? Work alone. I don't work for clients. I don't know what I'm doing. I have all the time in the world to experiment, and I'll make a Christmas tree out of this slide. So if you want to trust me, it's on you. Thank you. And yet, I still don't blindly jump on the latest and bleeding edge tech all the time. So you still have, even if you have all the time in the world, it's not about changing frameworks like their socks. So how do we get to this FOMO, NOMO state? How do we remove the fear of missing out? You need to recognize the breaking points when you're moving from A to B, whatever that is. It is a front-end framework, database, whatever it is, you need to recognize the breaking point. Do we need to move to this other thing? So the 3 questions are, how easy is the transition? Is now the right time? And do I really need it? The answer is no most of the time, but you're like, oh, we really need style components right now. So it's hard to answer these questions, and I'm going to tell you how I answer them, for example, for one of the things that I'm using, CSS. So I started with CSS. Then it wasn't working out, just vanilla CSS. So I adopted Sass, and I adopted BEM. Then I realized I'm becoming the Angelina Jolie of adopting CSS things. And I realized this is not going to work until someone does all of this manual work that I'm doing for me. So that's when I saw CSS in JS, and that's when Aphrodite came out in 2016, I think. I was like, holy shit, like Aphrodite does everything that I was doing manually with Sass and BEM, but now it does it for me. So I wasn't focused too much, how much am I going to lose on performance or whatever. I'm like, this solves things for me, so I don't have to do it. And then, of course, I jumped to styled components. When I saw it the first time, I was like, this is terrible. Then I liked it. Then because of the object support, I moved on to Glamorous. Then Glamorous got deprecated. Then I moved to Emotion. And then I would have stuck with Emotion because Emotion is great. But Max trolled me on one of my projects by opening a PR for switching to style components just to prove me that they're the same. He's like, if you switch to style components, it's the same API. So whether you're using Emotion, style components, it doesn't matter at the end of the day, they're the same. My point here is stop measuring kilobytes. So I'm going to explain 2 contexts here. When we were working with GraphQL, and when we first started adopting Apollo, whenever you do a mutation, whenever you add a to-do, for example, you need to also modify the cache that you have on the client side. So there are 5 different solutions on updating the Apollo cache. 4 of them are over-engineering. So for the 4 of them, your team will need to spend weeks on actually updating and invalidating the Apollo cache, which is a huge, major pain in the ass. And after I think couple of months of doing this. For every mutation that we did, we were babysitting the cache, trying to update it properly and so on. And for the end user, for a client, it didn't matter. For the client who was paying for the app was fast enough, and they were like, whatever, this works. The users were like, whatever, this works. And our team was busting our ass to update that cache. And someone from the Apollo team told me, why don't you use client.resetStore? I'm like, what's that? It resets the entire Apollo store, and it refetches the queries. And immediately we're like, no, but that's wasted kilobytes. That's so many new network requests, but does it matter at the end of the day? When you measure your entire team spending weeks on over-engineering this solution for invalidating the cache and just writing client.resetStore, and then the to-dos are fetched again, and it's 0.001 kilobyte, but you're still like, I don't want that. I want it to be pure. I want the solution not to waste any data. But at the end of the day, you need to stop measuring these kilobytes and start measuring how much time are you actually wasting on implementing something that the end user is not going to notice. So when we switch to the client.resetStore, the clients, the user, nobody noticed anything until the AWS bill was too high because of data waste, but that's another story. So sleep on these decisions. I'm not saying that you should immediately jump on these things because they improve your life or whatever. I need you to sleep on these decisions before you move to something else. There was an awesome real life story about a guy who was freezing his credit cards, but literally just put them in the freezer. He was a shopping addict, and because he couldn't control himself, he decided, I'm going to put my credit card in the freezer, and anytime I have an impulse buy, I want to buy something, I have to go home, unfreeze the card, and then come the next day and buy the thing. And as you can guess, he never came back to actually buy the things. So I think we should do this a bit more in our community, because we're like, oh, a shiny library, I need this. Like there was a documentation library, I think Docs or something, and when it came out, it's so shiny. The README is so pretty. I was like, I need to document something right now. I'm gonna document my dog just to use this library. So we're like that, we're not sleeping over these decisions. We're like, oh my God, it's shiny, I need it right now. And what I'm not saying is you should get too comfortable. So don't get too comfortable. Always like know what are the new things, but don't go in depth and don't learn them just in case. I see this in our community. So many people are learning things just in case one day I might need this super in-depth article about SVG. So you're gonna sit on Medium, read it for 20 minutes, something about SVG, and then 5 months later, you're gonna forget everything, right? Because if you don't use it, you're not gonna remember. And then you're Googling how to circle in SVG. So don't use this just in case stuff until you actually need it. Next point, less abstractions. So if you want to reduce this FOMO-NOMO of, oh, I need this library, I need this needs to be a function, this needs to be this and that, we need to reduce the amount of abstractions that we're using. So there are a couple of scientific scans of a brain here. So this is our brain on cocaine. This is our brain on sugar. It's even worse, right? When I saw this, I was like, shit. And then this is not a scientific image. The next one is a Photoshop image. This is our brain when it recognizes the opportunity for an abstraction. Some code. You're like, I'm so smart. I'm a genius developer. I see these two similar lines, and I guess it's a function, or it's a class. When you're going to abstract it, you're like, I'm so smart. I finished such a job today because I recognize that these two lines are literally the same, so I abstract them in a class. And this creates more job every day than it solves the problem that you have. So instead of doing an abstraction, it hurts, right? When you see this slide, you can see a couple of people in the back are like, fuck this, I don't want to copy paste in my code. But we need to copy paste more. Like anytime you see something similar, maybe it's not a component, maybe it's not a function, maybe it's not a CSS class. Just copy paste it 5 times before you decide, oh, this is some abstraction and I want to abstract this. Because then when you revert it, when you recognize it's not an abstraction, it's more of a pain in the ass to go back to how it was. So we need more copy paste. I know it's hard to do every time you're going to be like, oh, I hate it. But just try and see that it's going to make your life easier. So now when I told you what not to focus on, like the abstractions and all of this jumping of frameworks and stuff, what can we focus on instead? So here's a wild suggestion. We're forgetting this. Like day to day, we're forgetting that we're actually building something for the end user. We're like so involved in how we're working and what stack we're using and what libraries we're using that we're forgetting that actually the end user is going to use our app. We as developers, I said, we have too much free time and we love to entertain ourselves during work by doing positive procrastination. So what is positive procrastination? You see something awesome on GitHub and you're like, you know what? I'm going to refactor this login form with Redux Saga and Redux Form. And then the login form is 2 input fields. You can solve it with literally vanilla JavaScript, but you're like, no. And then you spend the entire day on trying to figure out how to connect Redux Saga with Redux form. And then after 8 hours, you yourself, you feel satisfied. Like, I'm so awesome, so fucking smart, right? And at the end of the day, your user is going to be like, oh, I can log in, whatever. This site is slow. So positive procrastination, we're doing it all the time because we're thinking of ourselves. We're not thinking of the end user. Here are some quotes that never happen. Wow, did you see that blog? The underlying tech stack is amazing. Like so many people are building blogs right now. It's blowing my mind, but nobody is writing articles. So people are just building their blog for weeks. It's in Gatsby and it's with, all right, cool, but did you write something? No. So this is a quote that never happened. One more. I totally love that website. Why? Because the Lighthouse score is 100% and they didn't include Lodash. Like the user doesn't give a fuck what you do. Somebody posted a website, somebody posted a screenshot of the Lighthouse score of their portfolio. So it was 100, 100, 100. And I think for a PWA, it was 80 or something like that. And someone was like, haha, it's not a PWA. Yeah, because it's my fucking portfolio. Why would someone pin it on their home screen? But when you get obsessed with those metrics that are not valid, you're like, I have to make my portfolio PWA. Maybe someone likes me enough, they're going to pin me on their home screen. Next up. Oh, the landing page is absolutely amazing because they didn't use style components and avoided the runtime cost. Nobody cares. And the last one, I love using that app because the state management is solved using functional programming and immutable.js instead of mutating the store with MobX. Literally nobody ever. So the user is like, you know what would be great if I can, and you're like, introducing dark mode with Gatsby themes. Like we're so self-involved, like I saw the shiny thing, I implemented it, but the users don't need it. I don't care, I'm an amazing developer. So I love this tweet, it was from 14 hours ago actually. These are called desire lines and every product has them. They are your users telling you what you want. To become a great designer, listen. I love the image because the users want to go straight and you're like, but I like this nice circle that I designed, right? So I think we should listen more to our users instead of just coding and being like, I'm amazing, I'm an amazing developer. So what developers care about and what they don't care about? Editor themes, we love to discuss. Did you see the new material, all dark mode? And fonts. Anytime I post a code screenshot, nobody's reading the code, they're like, what font is that? Every fucking time. Folder architecture, like put everything in one folder. Seriously, someone is like, well, I'm organizing my views and then I'm putting my components and just put them, all of them in one fucking folder. Stop wasting time on this. It's that simple. Tabs versus spaces. Seriously? For how long are we gonna have this one and this one? Just use semicolons. Don't be a hipster. Move on, please. Webpack is hard. I think we settled on this in 2015. It never got easier. It's not funny anymore. Let's move on. Twitter bios. Google developer, expert, dad, husband, like we're obsessed with Twitter bios more than the stuff that matters. Hobbies of React developers. This was recent, right? React developers are weightlifters, and I don't know. It was, when I read that, I was like, what is going on? And what? These people have too much free time. Seriously. We're obsessed with the versioning of Angular. Did you know that Angular went from 1 to 2 to 7? It's so funny. And then React goes from 0.16 to 16, and we're like, that's how numbers work. That's fine, right? And then we have jokes about exiting Vim. They're not funny anymore. We should quit them. Haha, get it? Quit them. And jokes about serverless. Did you know it's somebody else's server? Haha, okay. So this is what we care about. What we don't care about, and I'm going to mention the M word here. It's about to get really uncomfortable because we're going to talk about money. This is what developers don't want to talk about. We will literally discuss anything on that list, anything. But mention money, and I see somebody's leaving from the back. Like, we don't want to discuss this at all. So this happened at a conference not so long ago. After my workshop, they said, everyone's going to do a panel, and they gave us a list of topics. And I picked freelancing, somebody else picked PHP, somebody picked jQuery, whatever. And we were supposed to have a discussion in the other hotel that was somewhere far from the hotel we were at. So they were like, after your workshop, you run to this other place, and you're going to have a table of people, you're going to discuss about freelancing. So I'm pumped. Finish my workshop, I'm running to the other place, I'm sweaty, I enter the room and I'm like, it's gonna be amazing, and this is a picture that I snapped from my table. This was the freelancing table. Nobody. PHP table, full. Some random hipster framework, full. Freelancing, nobody wants to talk about it. And this is not only a developer problem. I wanna make this point. This is a human, like people problem, it's not a developer problem, but I'm gonna mention why am I mentioning money in this talk at all. It's not only developers because it's weird, like society has it backwards. Try mention this in front of your friends. I barely made enough for rent this month. They're gonna, haha, hashtag broke. Same, bro. Yeah, we're all the same. And like immediately everyone chips in and everyone is like in the conversation. They love it. And try it the other way around. It should be the other way around. When you say, I made so much money last month, they're like, Jesus, why the flex? Why would you say that? And it should be the other way around. Like we should encourage each other to like be open about salaries and everything else and talk about money, but we're like, no, Webpack and folders and stuff like that. So I'm telling you all of this because I'm so pissed off that it's never been easier to make money as a developer. Seriously, like we live in an age where everything is super easy. You can literally launch an app, a startup, whatever you call it, overnight. So this is my grandma launching her startup. Because like, even if I'm not a backend developer, but I have a couple of apps that have a backend, which still blows my mind. If someone points a gun to my head and they're like, write an SQL query, I'll be like, shoot. I don't know how to write SQL, and I still have a couple of backends, because you have like backend as a service, database as a service, React as a service, somebody else writing your app as a service, somebody else making money for you as a service. Like everything is as a service, and it's super easy, even if you're not like full stack, to do anything you want. So it's not about full stack anymore. It's super easy to have backend, frontend. You can be like super mega full stack with, there are easy tools for marketing, easy tools for distribution, easy tools for anything. You just have to decide that you're gonna sell whatever you do. So, do you know why is this surgeon sad? Probably like, oh, his patient died or something happened and no. So this is what it says on that note of the surgeon. Studied for 15 years, but somewhere out there's a nerdy teen who learned vue.js in 2 months and made a Tinder for cats, and he's gonna make more money than you're gonna make ever. Like, ever. And that's why he's sad. He's like, fuck, I wasted 30 years on my college degree. So I think that we're in the most awesome position ever. We're in the most like privileged industry. We're so spoiled. And I think it's a shame if we don't use this time to actually build something awesome and solve a lot of problems. But why are we developers scared to charge for anything that we do? Everything is open source, everything is free, we're giving out our time for free. So these are some of the reasons why do we feel bad for charging. It feels wrong. Nobody says this in any other industry. When I explained open source to my mom, she was like, you're nuts. You're working for free? I'm like, no, but it's not like that. They're giving me stars and they tweet about me on Twitter, and she's like, no, you're working for free. So when you say it feels wrong, just think about, would any other industry do this for free? No. Well, anyone can write this. I've heard this so many times that whatever I can write, somebody else can write. But the point is, they don't want to write it. So when you build something, no matter how simple it is, somebody wrote like a Mac menu app for counting how many days are left until the end of this year or something. It was $5. So many developers were like, I can write this, but so many people are not developers. They're like, oh, cool, it's just $5. I'm going to buy this because I cannot write this. So don't fall for this that anyone can write anything. Probably nobody needs this. If you have a problem, probably a lot of people have the same problem. No matter how specific it is, no matter how stupid it is, probably if you launch it, if you put it out there, you're going to find a lot of people who have the same problem. I'm not good enough. Okay, we all have this. There was someone who approached me at a workshop and he said, I want to teach, but I feel that I don't know everything and people are going to know in the audience that I'm a fraud and I don't know everything. And I'm like, so are you going to wait until you know everything? I don't know everything. There's so many times during a workshop where I'm like, I don't know. Like, honestly, I don't know about this certain thing because you cannot know everything. So you're never going to be good enough. The point is just to start and do something. GitHub stars and exposure. I recently wrote an article on this. It's called GitHub stars won't pay your rent. It's more or less about what I'm talking in this talk. So yeah, this is fine at the beginning to get a lot of stars, to get a lot of exposure, to get your work out there, but just don't do it forever. Don't get stuck on the GitHub stars and exposure forever. And then we have the Twitter bubble. I'm amazed by this. After I launched my first like big paid app, and I see so many companies in the world, I realize no matter how many people I'm following on Twitter, it's always a small bubble, like a tiny, tiny, tiny bubble of people. So when you're about to release something, you're like, oh, but my 5 friends already know about this and they're smart and they can write it themselves. Maybe it's not valuable, but you're forgetting about literally 99.9% of the world. So just get out of the Twitter bubble, and a lot of people would need your solution to a problem. And the worst one, well, at least I'm learning. So you're stuck on the subway for 2.5 hours and you're like every day back and forth and you're like, well, at least I'm learning a lot about SVG. So this is a wrong mindset to have. Couple last points. why are we afraid to launch something paid? Because haters are louder than customers on the internet. And I learned this recently. Anytime you see something from the outside, somebody is launching something paid. Whether it's a library, whether it's a, whatever it is, an app, a mobile app, whatever, you see the haters being amplified on the internet. So their voice is more loud. They're like, why is this paid? This should be free. I can write this in 37 seconds. This is not valued so much, blah, blah, blah. And as a maker, as a developer, when you see that, you're like, well, maybe they're right. Maybe this should have been paid. Maybe I should make this for free for next time I launch something. So I'm making this point because I'm afraid that so many people only see it from the outside, and then they get scared because the haters like, this should be free, this should be open source, I deserve to have this for free. So I'm like, who the fuck are you to tell me how much should I price the thing that I made? This only happens on the internet. Nowhere else you can find people like, you cannot find someone going in a store and picking up like a simple black t-shirt and being like, $25? Well, I could buy this in another store for like $7. They're gonna be like, yeah, and why don't you go and buy it for $7? Or you enter the supermarket and you're like, this milk is $3.5? Well, I can go to the other end of town and get milk for $2.5, or even better, I'm gonna get my own cow and I'm gonna milk it every day and I'm gonna have free milk. They're gonna be like, yeah, cool, do that. But on the internet, it's not like that. Someone attacks you and you're like, no, well, I have to justify my position and tell you why they decide to charge my thing for $5 or whatever. So my point is just don't look at it from the outside. You're still gonna have customers no matter what you solve. Don't focus on the haters. They're always gonna be louder. I'm saying all of this, it's not gonna be that easy in the upcoming years. Now the entry bar is very low to learn to be a developer, to launch something. The entry bar is really, really low. Things are gonna get more and more automated. I love this example of a factory lector. This was a job of a person who was reading in a factory. One day, they replaced him with a radio, and he was like, oh, fuck, now I don't have a job. But he didn't have Hacker News, he didn't have Medium, he didn't have the internet to tell him, one day you're gonna be replaced by a radio. We have all of this, like articles and things that we're reading, machine learning, AI, all of this stuff, and you're like, nah, I'm gonna move rectangles with CSS forever and get paid $5K for it. And it's not gonna happen. Like if you look throughout history, every job was replaced. Our jobs are gonna get more and more and more automated, and the entry bar is gonna get higher. If you don't believe me, I'm gonna give you a couple of AI examples. You can draw like in Microsoft Paint, and NVIDIA AI can turn that into a landscape. What makes you think that you cannot turn this thing into a landing page or whatever? Then we have self-driving cars. This is like, if cars can drive by themselves, why do you think like CSS, HTML, React, whatever is not gonna be automated? And you still don't trust me, right? But I'm gonna give you this example. AI can recognize if that's a dog or a muffin, a bagel or a dog, or a mop or a dog. And you can see half of the audience be like, is that a muffin? I don't know. So AI is eventually gonna be better than us. You just have to deal with it and be prepared for it. So this is, I think this is an example from Microsoft where they take a couple of scribblings and stuff that you do and they detect what elements do you need, and eventually they're gonna generate a landing page for you. Because this is Microsoft, they're gonna add Clippy, and Clippy is gonna take your job, which is sad. No, but seriously, you can envision a feature where someone, a product manager, instead of telling to you and then you tell your team and you tell your other developers around you, the product manager is gonna be like, Alexa, suggest me a couple of responsive menu styles for that header. She's gonna go through 30,000 websites and should suggest a header. Or he's gonna be like, move that 3 pixels to the right. No, move that 2 pixels to the left. And Alexa, unlike the designers in your team, she's not gonna bitch and she's gonna move the things left and right. So, yeah. We have to think about the future and quickly adapt, unless you can fix printers, you're gonna have a job forever. You're never gonna be automated if you fix printers. If you wanna work on legacy systems, it's another one. So if you wanna work with Pascal, with COBOL, with Angular 1, you're still gonna have a job forever. And this is my favorite slide. This is a company called COBOL Cowboys, and their tagline is, not our first rodeo, because they're in development for 250 years. And they're making a lot of money. It's funny to us, we're like, haha, we know React, but they're making more money than us. And the moment I saw them, I was like, these are probably the oldest developers that exist ever. And when I opened the button, there they are. So this is their junior developer who's joining this week. Thank you. So let's summarize. I think I'm out of time. I'm running 5 minutes late. This timer is going in the wrong direction. So let's summarize the talk. Stop seeking external approval. Your code is good enough. Stop seeking answers in other people's projects. Stop feeling insecure about your code because nobody actually knows what they're doing. Less abstractions, more copy-paste. This one hurts, I know. Recognize the breaking points before moving A to B. This is really important. When you have FOMO, it's just a side effect of the wrong priorities. You're not thinking of the right things, and that's why you have the FOMO effect. Focus on the users or on your money. Don't spend your time just changing frameworks every day, and you'll be just fine without Redux Helicopter 7.4. Bedank and Tonsis, thank you very much. You can find more info about me somewhere around here. Thank you.